Hi, welcome to the Waco Public Library's YouTube channel. My name is Alisha and we are doing Keepsake Crafts. Today we're going to make this handwriting wall art. It's a great way to display kind of a little way to remember someone if you have some old letters or something that you'd like to preserve without risking the safety of your document. I got this handwriting sample from some old letters that I have. These are letters that my great-grandfather sent home while he was overseas during World War II. So that's why this says, "All My Love, Cookie." It's where he signed off on one of his letters. Cookie was his nickname. These are my great-grandparents. This is Cookie, and that was my great-grandmother. Everyone called her Shotzi. So for today's craft supplies, you're gonna need one of these plain, unfinished wooden frames. They come in all shapes, all sizes. This is just kind of like plain basswood. You can get it in solid wood. Just check your craft store, check online, find something that you like. And you're gonna need some sandpaper. I've got masking tape. If you have painter's tape, that's even better. Whatever color paints you want to use, I just stuck with black and white. A photocopy of your handwriting. Photocopy it, I enlarged it right on the copier to fit the space that I'm working with. And some carbon paper. I got this pack online and it actually came with these little stylus tools, which really come in handy. And I've got a fine point black Posca paint pen. And then I've got paintbrushes and some clear spray to seal it when you're done. The first time I did this, I didn't sand it, and that was a mistake. Sand it so it's smooth, and I'm going to show you why. This was my first attempt, and I did not sand this one because I didn't think it needed it. I don't know if you can see that, but when I used the paint marker to trace my lettering, and it caught on all these little spots, these rough spots, and the paint splattered. So it's worth the little bit of extra time it takes to sand down your surface and make it smooth. You're gonna sand down the surface. It doesn't take long. And then when you're done with sanding it down, when it feels smooth to you, just make sure you clean off all the dust off of it before you move to the next step. I've got this one half painted already. I painted my background white. I'm going to paint the frame black. To protect the edges here, I'm going to tape around the edges just to keep the paint from seeping and spreading onto the white paint. And just right up against the edge. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. And that's another handy use for these little stylus tools, is I use the little ball tip here to kind of make sure that the edge of the tape is pressed down. Burnish it down so it sticks really well. This way you can paint right up against the edge. And then hopefully you'll have a fairly clean line when you pull the tape away. And when I did my finished product, I didn't paint all the way to the back. I just painted the sides and the top edge. When you're done painting, give it plenty of time to dry, and you'll end up with just a plain background like this. Like I said, enlarge your handwriting to fit your space. You can trim the extra paper away, and then I'm going to trim the carbon paper pretty close to fit as well. Lay that flat, try to center it, and then tack it down with a little bit of tape. Try not to put too much pressure so I don't end up with carbon paper fingerprints on my white background. I'm going to take one of the stylus tools, and I'm going to use the edge here to brace my hand and trace the lettering with my stylus tool. Peel the tape away. Let's see if we have any carbon transfer where it's not supposed to be. It looks pretty good. If you end up with carbon transfer, don't panic. You can touch it up with paint later if you'd like. Be careful not to touch it too much. You don't want it to smear. And then use your paint marker. This is the first time I've used a paint marker, so it was kind of a learning experience. I learned about having to sand it first. The paint flows pretty well. You don't need to use a lot of pressure. In fact, a light hand is much better, because even with some sanding, there might be ridges, and if the tip of that marker catches, then you may end up with some paint splatter. You can trace it, take your time, go nice and slow. If you don't have a paint pen, you can use a fine tip paintbrush. If you have steadier hands than I do, you can paint it by hand. Probably even just use a permanent marker, like a Sharpie or something. If that's what you've got, just work with what you've got. It doesn't have to be a really expensive project. Now, I ended up with a little bit of carbon transfer. I tried erasing it. It did not work very well. So if you end up with a smear, I would suggest touching it up with some paint, whatever back color you used for your background. On my finished one, you can see I went back and thickened the lines a bit. I thought those lines were just a little too thin, and I wanted it to kind of stand out. I wanted it to be bolder. So I went through a second time and thickened those lines with the paint pen, and that's it. I don't have picture hanging hardware on the back of it, but you could add that, hang it up on your wall, put it on a picture stand. Hang it with photos of your loved one, whomever you're trying to remember, and I think it would be a great way to spark conversation about your family history. All right, thank you for joining me for another Keepsake Craft. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.